6.4 million children ages 4 through 17 have been diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. That's according to the CDC, and that's a 16% increase since 2007. That also means the number of prescriptions for Adderall and other ADHD drugs has soared, making it easier for pills to be bought, borrowed, or stolen by overachieving students who need it. They stay focused, but is this an unfair advantage? And how does the habit of popping an Adderall affect people longer term? What has your experience been like on the medication?
Well, yeah, that's right. I've been diagnosed with ADHD, and the medication for me, I wouldn't say I need it. I would say that it helps me. It helps me to get through the day without forgetting important appointments. It makes it more likely that I'll get to all the things I'm supposed to get to. Makes it less likely that I'll space out when my girlfriend is talking to me. A lot of things that are helpful. I got by though for 22 years without it. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in college, so I've been on and off.
And Will, how did they diagnose you? I mean, what sort of testing did you have to go through before they realized that you actually needed medication to stay focused?
Well, I took a modified version of the IQ test, which tested for a number of different functions, and one of them is called, some people call it executive function. It's sort of your brain's ability to regulate, at least as I understand it, your brain's ability to regulate what your brain should be doing at any given moment. I scored really well on the IQ test, really terribly on executive function, and that tied in with my lifelong disorganization, my horrible time management, and helped the doctor make a diagnosis.
So now you have an excuse for just being all over the place all those years, huh?
But it's not an excuse. I mean, that's the thing.
No, I mean, now you have an excuse because you've actually been diagnosed with ADHD, which a lot of people aren't actually diagnosed, Will, and it's exactly why we're having this conversation. It's misused. I mean, is that frustrating for someone that actually needs it to see it being misused for, you know, especially with students that think they need to just stay focused and ultimately do better when they don't really need it?
Yeah, that's a fair question. That's what I was exploring in my article, and I think a lot of people with ADHD feel that way. They feel, hey, look, this is really unfair. We need this stuff just to get by, and here other people are taking this stuff, and it's really cheating. When I looked at it and talked to a number of experts in the field, I came to the conclusion that's not necessarily the case. I don't know that it is, you know, I don't necessarily feel cheated if other people find that it helps them as well, whether they've been diagnosed with ADHD or not.
Are there any misperceptions that you can further explain, since you know it so well? I mean, I feel like there are new articles out every day about Adderall, long-term effects. I mean, obviously, you're not the doctor here. We just lost him. We'll get him back in a minute. But from your experience, I mean, what are some of the misperceptions out there?
Well, I think there's a misconception that ADHD isn't a real thing. I mean, it's true that it's not something that you clearly either have or you don't, like juvenile diabetes or something. It's on a spectrum. But I think a lot of people assume that it's something just made up by the big pharmaceutical industry so that they can sell drugs. I can attest that I don't think that's true from my experience. I think another misconception is the idea, and this is part of what my article tackled, it's really convenient to think that these ADHD drugs are great for people with ADHD, but really bad and scary and risky for people without ADHD, because that would justify the way our legal system treats them. I'm not convinced that's true. I think that they have some risks and some benefits for people with ADHD, and probably the same for people without.